Welcome back to another episode of the Mac Rumor Show. I am Dan Hartley. Good to see you. We're like 1 month away. Well, no, when this is released and when most people are probably listening to it, we'll be 1 month away from the rumored Apple event for the iPhone 15 and the Apple Watch. I'm starting to get excited. It's been a slow summer now after WWDC was over with, so I'm ready to get back into the craziness that is September and then Techtober and all of the releases that happen in that time frame before we get to the end of the year. But how are you feeling about the rumored Apple event, which I mean happens every year, so we could pretty much bet it's happening.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm really interested to see exactly what is coming. Is it just going to be iPhone and Apple Watch?
Well, that was going to be
Um,
my question for
which
you.
it has been in the past, but
Yeah.
I really don't know. Could there be something else? Could we get a little iPad mini refresh in there? Could we get a first glimpse at M3, even if we don't get the M3 Max? I don't know. Is there going to be anything else? Maybe new accessories? That's something else. I'm sure we'll talk about that in a little more detail a little bit later. But other than accessories, Apple Watch and iPhone, I really don't know if there's anything else. But that's probably enough for a September event, especially if we get something else before the end of the year with M3 Max.
Well, let's start with the event itself. So, what we do know for sure, well, not for sure, but what we do know and anticipate is that it's probably going to be another pre-recorded event, um, and it's most likely going to be on September 12th. Now, there was a report from Gurman last week, I believe, saying that it was either going to be the 12th or the 13th. Oh no, this was on Sunday, and then I think just recently he came out and said that it's all signs pointing to the 12th. Which the 13th, one of our colleagues yelled at me because I missed that little note and saw that it was. I did a video on this yesterday. If you guys want to check it out, but I was saying that it was either I've been anticipating the 12th all along, but I focused on the 13th because this little note was interesting that there was a rumor that a major smartphone announcement was going to happen and that multiple carriers have been blocking employees' calendars from taking time off on the 13th. And the only reason why I bring this up again is because I just still think it's funny that carriers are like, you can't take off this day. Apple's releasing a phone. But like, what happens on the day an iPhone gets released at like a Verizon store? Are people like running there to
Yeah,
do what? To talk
exactly.
about it? So that rumor was a little sketch. So I just wanted to. I was trying to further validate that I think it's going to be the 12th. It's usually been on a Tuesday, and it's always within those first 2 weeks. So we're looking at September 12th. And then, yeah, I mean, iPhone and Apple Watch. Those are really the two things. And then in my video, I said, I don't know what kind of surprises there could be. Could there be more talks about Apple Vision Pro? Like, do you think they'll talk about how the new iPhone and Apple Watch could integrate a little bit? Or is it possible that they just don't mention Apple Vision Pro at all?
I think it would be a missed opportunity if they didn't, because I think they've got to keep the momentum around that device.
Yeah.
And I think it would be really interesting if we could see some tangible differences with the iPhone 15. One rumor, actually, that I was reading, it's quite an old one now, which is that we are supposed to get a next generation ultra wideband chip in the iPhone 15 models, in all of them. So it's not just for the Pro models. And I think the U1 chip is made with a 90 nanometer process, but this second generation chip, I don't know whether it literally will be called U2, but
Oh, I hope
if
it's
it
called
is,
you too.
yeah. So call it the U2 chip for now. Uh,
It'll be on everyone's
that would be,
iPod.
I think, 7 nanometers, and that is a huge increase. In the amount of transistors they can fit on there. So that is an enormous upgrade from 90 nanometers to 7 nanometers.
Yeah.
So if we think about the AirTag discussion that we had last week,
Hmm.
if the next generation AirTag is going to lean into this ultra wideband integration with Vision Pro, maybe the U2 chip also has some connection with Vision Pro there.
I think it's going to be one of those things where, okay, maybe they don't mention it. Maybe they mention it once or twice, but I think they feel like I just feel like it's going to be one of those like, hey, don't forget we launched this, but they never talk about it throughout the rest of the event. I feel like that's more likely because they need all the stuff they
They've
can
got-
talk about when they officially do their event for Apple Vision Pro.
I doubt there'll be new information about it. I don't think we're going to get more details on the accessories or the I don't know the different light seals or whatever it may be, where we still have some outstanding questions. But I have no doubt that we will see it in some capacity.
Yeah.
Because they have to keep the excitement around this device. I think it would be pretty terrible, even just for shareholders, if Apple holds a major event and they just don't mention it, their
Yeah.
biggest new product.
Well, especially if you look at some of the comments on my videos about Apple Vision Pro, like I did one recently, kind of like 1 month later, like, how do we feel about it after we've had a month to digest? And people were like, I haven't heard anything about this device since it was officially like, they feel like all the buzz has worn off. So I kind of agree with that. I feel like it's been pretty like, okay, here it is. And then for like 2 weeks, that's all we talked about. And then like everything just became less and less to the point where no one's really mentioning it in anything. Obviously, that'll pick back up, and Apple has a great way of marketing their devices, and they'll figure it out. But yeah, I think they have to mention it in some way. I just don't know that it's going to be something that's heavily involved. But obviously, we are expecting iPhone 15 lineup. Are you expecting any surprises with the iPhone 15 lineup, or do you think it's going to be pretty much what we've been reporting and that's it? Because like the Dynamic Island was a surprise, and in the sense that we almost went into the event completely in the dark about it. It was only like a couple days beforehand in which we found out that there was going to be this different type of cutout. So do you think there's anything like that, or are we still shaping up to be just pretty much like another event where we know everything?
I'm not sure if there is going to be anything major with these devices because, for all intents and purposes, this does feel like a little bit of an S year in terms of upgrades. And with something like Dynamic Island, we knew about the cutouts and we'd heard about some software integration, but we didn't know how that would actually work. With this device, and you think about, say, a titanium frame, I know what that is like. There's not really much capacity to surprise me. Even with things like an action button, how much can they do with that other than just, make it integrate with shortcuts to
Well,
really do something interesting?
let's go through that list. Let me see if I can find it. There was a list of things that leaked. Remember, we had a story on that. Here it is. So the options that were found in, I want to get this right. iOS 17 Beta 4 found some code that had 9 different options that users could customize and assign different actions to. And so I want to know your thoughts on this list. We didn't go through this already, right? I don't think so.
I don't think so, no.
I apologize if we did, guys, but we're going to go through it again. Okay. So accessibility, this would be most likely what, like accessing VoiceOver, Zoom, Assistive Touch, all those things.
Yeah.
Shortcuts, obviously that's self-explanatory. You can map out any shortcuts that you have in your shortcut app. Obviously, it is a mute switch first and foremost, so silent mode. Then the camera, which is what I would want. Flashlight. Focus modes, which is interesting. I didn't think about that. Magnifier, which would let you use the camera's magnifying glass. Translate, which this option would let users launch the Translate app and start a conversation or text translation with a single press of the action button. And then voice memos, which would just be launching into the voice memos app.
Hey guys, I just want to let you know this episode of the Mac Rumor Show is sponsored by Mint Mobile. Signing your life away to a big wireless provider is kind of like being trapped on a roller coaster. From hell, sure, it looked like fun at first. I mean, they probably threw in a free phone. But now you can't get off. Month after month of insane bills and unexpected thrills, like overages and surprise fees. If that sounds like your current big wireless plan, it's time to get off the ride and get with Mint Mobile. For a limited time, wireless plans from Mint Mobile are just $15 a month. That's unlimited talk, text, and data for just $15 a month. Nobody likes huge phone bills with a bunch of hidden charges that come and go, and then you got to call them up, and it's like, what's the deal here? And I hate going through that. That stuff just doesn't happen with Mint Mobile because it gives you premium service for just $15 a month. Obviously, you can have just one line, or you can have a family plan, and plans come with unlimited talk and text and high-speed data delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. I have been not only loving how fast Mint Mobile is compared to my last provider, but just how reliable it is. And every month when I go to look at my bill, it's always the same price. You can also use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and bring your own phone number along with all of your existing contacts. So to get your new wireless plan for just $15 a month and get that plan shipped to you to your door for free, go to mintmobile.com/Mac. That's mintmobile.com/Mac. Cut your wireless bill down to just $15 a month at mintmobile.com/Mac.
I feel like the best way to do this, in my opinion, is to have like single, double, triple tap, and then have 3 different options available. Do you think that would happen?
I think that it's got to have some multi-purpose capability,
Okay.
and I wouldn't be surprised if mute is maybe you can't change to that. So a single press of it or a long press gets you mute and unmute, whereas a double press gets you to your action. I mean, of course, on the iPad has mute, but it's just in Control Center. So maybe that we will see it emerge in Control Center, and then if you don't want the button to be for that, that's where you access it instead on the iPhone.
I mean, I know that's like 2 extra steps to get to it, or 1 extra step, but that would almost be preferred, in my opinion. Just don't make me use it as a silent mode because I rarely ever turn it off. So if I do, I can take the time to do 1 extra step and get into, and I said this last time, and I was kind of shocked at how many people were like, I go between silent and unsilent. I'm like, you do? Like you actually turn it off and you have your ringer on? I'm shocked by this. I don't even know what the ringer sounds like anymore. They could have changed it and I'd have no idea.
Yeah, I keep my iPhone on silent most of the time as well.
Yeah.
I think I would definitely use an action button far more. I think just for setting timers or, you can do so much with shortcuts. Playing a playlist or starting a workout even could be really useful.
Yeah. I would love it to just be fully customizable in the sense that we can just pick whatever we want. But,
You would be able to through shortcuts.
It's not the same, Hartley. It's not the same.
Why? We've had this discussion about the Apple Watch Ultra as well, and I can't get my head
most
around.
Most normal people aren't going to want to spend okay. And again, I could be way off base, and then this is just another one of those things where I find out that I am fascinatingly just out of touch with the average consumer. I would love to hear from you right now on x.com, which sounds dirty. Go there and X at us, post at us. I don't even know. Whatever. You know what I'm talking about. At Dan Barbera, at Hartley Charlton, or leave a comment or whatever. Just get in contact with me. Do you know what the shortcut app is, first and foremost? Have you ever created a shortcut from scratch? And if not, do you have shortcuts that you download, or do you even know where to find those? Because my thought process is most people don't even know what the Shortcuts app does, probably has never opened it. But again, I'm thinking from people like my wife who does not know, would not open it. People listening to this podcast probably do. But I'm talking about the vast majority.
If your iPhone 15 Pro comes with mute just automatically mapped to that button,
yeah, it's a good chance that people aren't
just going to use.
Yeah.
So it's really only if you care that you would then open the Shortcuts app and tell your own thing.
Tell me. You can do shortcuts. I'm not saying to remove that. I'm saying what most people would probably want is just the ability to pick any app. So have this list and then just customize it to being or open this app, and then you just pick from your list of apps. It doesn't have to be anything crazy specific.
But then that's opening up a whole separate API that developers have got to integrate, because of course you'd want third-party apps to be involved in that in some capacity.
I mean, it's not that hard. Literally every other Android device can do this. It's not that hard. Is this like a privacy thing?
I like the approach that Apple has got, because I'll give you the example of how the Siri API worked up until quite recently. I think it was literally an iOS 17 change, or at least it started around iOS 16. There was a dedicated API for things to integrate with SiriKit. And that has now been removed, and instead things integrate with shortcuts, and you now have pre-made shortcuts. So the shortcuts are already created for you for default apps and for third-party apps. And then you go into the shortcuts app and you can choose from those. And so everything is in the same place. So anything that integrates anywhere else in the system, whether it's with Siri or whether it will be with the action button, everything ties back to shortcuts. And it's pre-made for you there. So pre-made phrases for Siri for third-party apps now exist in shortcuts.
I mean, it's still not as easy as just going into settings and then tapping your option to be launch, and then you choose an app. But I mean, okay, it's basically there in the sense that you could do it if you really wanted to. You just need to take an extra
maybe
5
you
minutes.
could launch an app. It wouldn't surprise
That's
me
all
if
I'm
they let you
saying.
launch
Yeah, I'm
it.
not saying
I'm
like,
saying some more nuance, if you want to do more nuanced stuff with it.
oh, that's fine. But I would say most people would probably, if they even get into these settings in the first place, would just be like, no, I would rather launch like Snapchat or something. You know, like imagine being able to launch the Snapchat camera instead of the regular camera. That would be cool if you're somebody who uses Snapchat a lot. I personally not a huge fan, but you know, there's or Instagram stories or something like. I mean, that's getting a little more involved than just launching said app, but you know, being able to do that would be pretty cool. But I just kind of assumed this was going to be a limited thing, at least out of the gate. And then if you want to get more crazy with it, you can just make your own shortcut. Either way, I'm fine with this list. So I can work with this. I just would love to hear if like the people who don't usually like to set custom settings and customize things, like how do you feel about this? Are you just going to leave it as a mute button and it is what it is? You know, please let us know. But yeah, so I'm excited about the action button. Titanium frame, I guess I'm excited about. I don't know. That's going to be one of those things where it's like, yeah, this feels good. And then we just don't talk about it again. You know, I am curious to see the actual redesign. Like I have dummy units, but I don't really notice a huge difference. Like there is a little bit of a difference. It's not as sharp, but again, these are like plastic. There's no titanium, so it's hard to get the full sense of what it might actually feel like. USB-C. So that's the other thing. Do you think it's going to be Thunderbolt, or is it just going to be faster? Like they're not going to market it as a Thunderbolt port?
I
For the pros.
probably,
Obviously, we know that
yeah, I
USB
can't
3.2
decide
is the
whether it's going to be USB 3.2 or whether it's going to be Thunderbolt. But either way, you're either going to get 20 gigabits per second or 40, which is more than enough for an iPhone. Thunderbolt would make sense considering that this is Apple Silicon. In fact, I know it's an A series chip, but what is driving this is the same technology that underpins the M series as well, and that obviously does have Thunderbolt controllers. So I wonder if it's just easier to just give it Thunderbolt. I mean, the iPad Pro has had Thunderbolt for a long time now, past 2 or 3 versions. So Thunderbolt would make sense, especially if you want to show how fast you can get that 4K ProRes video off the new devices.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. And like obviously we're not there yet with like being able to take the same types of 3D videos or spatial videos or photos or whatever for the Apple Vision Pro, and we don't have, you know, any concrete idea that that's actually going to be something that happens, but it just makes sense for Apple to integrate that into the iPhone cameras in the future so that you're not trying to wear that thing over your head over and over again in random places, but then you can consume that content at a later date. But like to get that off to, you know, your Mac or something, I mean, you these videos are probably going to be, and they're already pretty large, so we need something better than AirDrop or image capture on your Mac. I don't know. Do most people even use that? What do people use these days to train? What do you use? Do you use image capture if you need to plug it in?
I don't think I've needed to plug my iPhone in for years. I don't even know what I would use it for to plug it in. I think I'd only end up plugging my iPhone into my Mac if I had a serious issue and I needed to do some sort of restore or recovery process.
we talked about this last time. I don't have photos synced to my Mac, so if I need to get videos, I usually just AirDrop it. But sometimes I have to plug it in if the videos are super large or lots of them, like recording like 4 + 5 minutes, 4K 24. That becomes kind of large. So, uh, anything else that you're excited about for the iPhone 15? There are some new. You want to talk about the new storage options that are rumored?
Well, I guess that kind of relates to what you were saying. A
Yeah.
2 terabyte storage option, which is huge. I really don't know who needs 2 terabytes of storage on their iPhone, but maybe if you are someone that is,
Well,
go ahead.
I was gonna let you finish, but I was just gonna say, if you want me to jump in now, I've seen a bunch of TikToks, and Andrew Edwards, our friend, he has a 1 terabyte, and he's using 770 gigs worth of that phone. So, I mean, he obviously doesn't need two right now, but he also says that he's got 2 terabytes of iCloud storage. So, in theory, if he doesn't want to put everything up in the cloud and keep it local, he could use a 2 terabyte phone, but that's a very select amount of people that are going to need that.
I mean, that's why I don't know how believable this rumor is. I can definitely believe that they will phase out the 128 gigabyte model and have the Pro lineup start with 256.
Well, that was going to say
It seems like it's a matter of time before that happens anyway.
that's the bigger news there, honestly. If they do this, is that 256 is now the base storage, which I think is the perfect amount for people. I kind of need 512 with the amount of videos that I've been taking, but that's really it. Like, I don't usually go more than that. I guess I could delete a lot of
I
videos too.
suppose if you were taking a lot of ProRes video and you do store it all on device, then Apple could make a good argument for why you would need a 2 terabyte phone. And if they do couple that with Thunderbolt as well, then they are presenting it as more of a production device,
Yeah.
I suppose. But I just don't know how many people would actually buy a 2 terabyte iPhone. The 1 terabyte model will still be available, of course. So how many people are going to go even further than that?
Maybe there's a lot of people out there that still download movies. Like, I mean, we're thinking of it from like what we
How
personally
many?
take.
How many?
I don't know. There's got to be somebody out there that stores like their entire media library on their phone, right? There's like one person out there.
I'm sure people would buy it. I just don't know how many people would buy it.
Yeah.
And that's maybe why I don't buy this rumor so much. We heard it, this rumor last year, I believe, with the iPhone 14 lineup that there was going to be a 2 terabyte iPhone. And eventually, I suppose there will be. But this year, I'm not so sure.
Okay. Well, we'll see. I am more excited just for the base model to be 256. I think I could probably get away with it. Honestly, I just need to delete some videos that, like all the social media videos, the TikToks, Instagram reels that I take and do for, Mac rumors and stuff are on my phone. And there are multiple clips of the same thing. That stuff adds up. And then even when I save it or post it to TikTok, it gives me a draft back, which I could probably turn that off. But and then when I do captions, that's a whole separate video because the captions app saves it as a new clip. So I have like many of the same. I should just go through and delete a lot of it. But yeah, tons of stuff. And so that's the camera. So the next thing that we've been talking about for a while now is the improvements to the camera. So we're expecting periscope, 6x optical zoom now for the Pro and Pro Max. I've been fine with this. I know you are a little sad because it's going to change the focal length. You're not a fan of that?
Yeah, but it's only the Pro Max. So I always get the smaller iPhone anyway.
Oh,
so
so
I'll
you're
be
good.
all right for just one more year.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, we're just expecting it to get an A17 chip, which, it's not insignificant. It's going to be 3 nanometer, right? So, like, that's a huge feat right there. But, I mean, I don't know. Does the most average consumers care about what chipset's coming in and cares how much faster your phone's already pretty good. But it'll have 6 GPU cores and 6 gigs of RAM.
It could lead to a decent battery life bump.
That's the thing that people will care
It's
about.
much more efficient.
Yeah, one of the latest comments I got was you didn't talk about battery life, and it's like, well, I don't have anything concrete. Like, we don't have rumors of like, oh, the battery is increasing to 5,500 milliamp hours or something like that. Like I just don't have, but we do have, word that the A17 could be more power efficient. So we could expect battery life to be better, but like how much is that going to translate? I don't really know. And honestly, I did a full review on the 14 Plus or 14 Pro Max, kind of my 1 year later, and my biggest gripe with it is that battery life has been trash for me lately, and it's a combination of things. It's been worse with iOS 17, but even before I got to the betas, it was still not great. And so any help there is greatly appreciated. I think that would be like the best. If they just came out and said we made the phone a lot thicker, but that's because we added a mega battery, I feel like everybody would freak out and buy it immediately. Am I off base here?
But I think it would be popular, and especially on the Pro models. However, I think it is important to note that every single Pro iPhone model that has been introduced, effectively, I mean, if you want to include the iPhone XS in this, every single one has had a battery life improvement of at least 1 hour. Some have had 4 hours. The jump from, I think it was the iPhone XS to the iPhone 11 Pro was a huge increase. I think that was maybe a 4-hour increase or something like that. But every single iPhone model has had at least 1 hour. So with a significant change to the underlying chip technology with this device, which will mean the whole thing should be more efficient. There's other elements we're expected to be more efficient as well, like the OLED driver is also supposed to be more efficient. As I mentioned before, the U1 chip, or whatever this new ultra wideband chip will also be more efficient. So there's these efficiency savings across the board. It's got to be at least 1 hour, at least maybe 3 hours improvement over the current models, which would be significant, because what is the Pro Max at this point? It's something like 29 hours battery life.
Oh, it sure as hell isn't that on a normal basis, though, for real. Like, I do not get
what
that.
what Apple claims it to be.
Right.
But this could be the first iPhone supposedly with 30 hours plus battery life.
Yeah. I mean, that would be nice. That would thermals could use some work too. I feel like my phone's getting way too hot these days, especially when wirelessly charging. I get it. That's probably not Apple's deal 100% there. At least with MagSafe, it's never hot. But with like normal Qi chargers, and specifically with my Tesla, that wireless charger makes my phone so hot.
But that's a notoriously bad wireless charger. So
yeah. So it's not
I think
not
that's
Apple's
more on
fault.
Tesla and less on Apple.
I'm not trying to blame Apple here. I understand that that's probably, but I still feel like in general it's gotten hot, and not from a charging standpoint, just from a use standpoint. It's not all the time. The thermals are generally pretty good, but we can always do better, and that will obviously increase battery performance as well. But yeah, the charger on the Tesla, good Lord. I've just brought a cord into my car now, because I'm like, first off, it doesn't give me any extra battery life, maybe like 1 or 2%, but it's at this point just maintaining, because it's so hot that it's just draining everything. Yeah, that charger is terrible. I'm trying to be more optimistic too, but this doesn't sound like it. I really am. I've gotten yelled at, although I got one compliment in which you were told that you were too positive, and I was told that I was like...
Yeah, well, we can't win, can we?
No, but there's a lot more people saying that I'm being too negative. And I'm not being negative. This is a time where I can like express how I really feel about certain things. Obviously, Apple is a great company, and I do enjoy all of their products, but they're not perfect. Nobody is perfect. If they were perfect, then we wouldn't need to do this show. We wouldn't need to talk about how we feel about devices. There wouldn't be YouTube reviews. Everything would just be perfect. We don't live in that world, so we need to be able to be honest and upfront about how things are. And there's room for improvement. And if another company does something better, that shouldn't offend you. We don't run Apple. Like, it doesn't matter. We want competition. That's a good thing. But anyways, so that's the iPhone 15 Pro and Pro Max. We don't usually spend a lot of time talking about the regular iPhone 15 and 15 Plus, just because there's just not a lot of stuff there. But they are getting, in theory, Dynamic Island. Is the frosted glass rumor still a thing, where we're expecting frosted glass?
We've only heard it once.
Okay.
So maybe not.
Because I was, like I did that video the other day, and I when I said that rumor, I was like, I still feel like this isn't going to happen, because then and I mean, it's not like it's impossible to have bright colored frosted glass phones, but typically the 15 lineup gets all the bright colors, and I just don't know how that translates with a non-glass, like glossy glass finish on the back.
I personally would really like it because I can't stand the glossy finish.
You don't?
I think
I
it just
kind of,
detracts fingerprints, and
yeah.
I just think it always looks terrible after a little while. It gets really scratched. I much prefer the frosted glass. I think it makes it feel much more premium.
But then this just looks boring. Oh, well, this phone looks great. I love the black, but like the purple does not look like purple. It's fine. It's not that bad, but like I don't know. You know, some people like bright colors. We could go through the color thing again, but I think people are gonna drive off a cliff if they hear us talk about colors again. So I want everyone to stay safe. So, but yeah, well, that was honestly we can't not talk about colors because that was the other rumor along with that frosted glass was also how are they going to do this bright pink and bright blue color that were rumored for those 15? Is that still a thing, or are we kind of expecting similar colors to last year?
We haven't heard anything else about color options for those devices. So I think the standard iPhone models this year are a little bit more of a mystery. I think the only things that are really nailed down are USB-C with USB 2.0 speeds, a 48 megapixel camera that is very similar to the one from the iPhone 14 Pro, and Dynamic Island.
So it's basically just going to be an iPhone 14 Pro with less cameras, right?
Yeah, and a less premium design.
Well,
so it's I think it's still a really solid upgrade. I mean, the iPhone 14 standard model was a little bit underwhelming compared to the iPhone 13. I think you would be hard pushed to justify upgrading from one to the other.
oh,
And
it
even
felt
if
like
you were coming from an older device, say you were coming from the iPhone 12
yeah,
to the iPhone 14, it isn't that significant. But I think 48 megapixel camera,
Yeah.
that is a great camera on the iPhone 14 Pro.
Yeah.
Likewise, USB-C will make a big difference to a lot of people. And Dynamic Island also is a really fun feature. We kind of forget how much fun we had with it when it first launched and how much we enjoyed using it. That is also something that standard iPhone users will get a lot out of. I think in terms of making an all-round iPhone for everyone, what more do you really want with a standard iPhone? This seems like a really reasonable, really solid upgrade.
Yeah. I mean, the 13 to 14 upgrade, that term is used very generously. I would not classify that as an upgrade. But yeah, I could see 13 to 14 being quite an upgrade. You're basically getting all of the good features from the 14 Pro in that same design that we've been used to for the standard models. And then the Plus is the Plus. I mean, it's just bigger, better battery, I guess. I haven't really used it, I'll be honest with you. I have one, but I have not used it past the first week of getting it. So I maybe I should go back to that and see just how much better that battery really is.
I'd be interested to see also what you think of how heavy it is, and do you actually really like having that bigger display but with a more lightweight design?
I was gonna say, hold on, it's not heavy at all. You were alluding to that, right?
Well, I was saying, is it off? Does it kind of offset how the Pro Max at times can feel a little bit sort of unwieldy in the hand because it's so heavy but also so big?
Yeah. So here's that the Plus. I mean, this feels like a paperweight, like light, like paper compared to this. This feels like a brick. So I mean, it's significantly lighter. I feel like, and I don't really know what the actual weight dimensions are, but I don't know. I mean, it's a good phone. It doesn't feel bad, and I mean, it's gonna run the same stuff. You're just gonna have a less camera, lesser screen, and that's really it. I mean, less performance technically, but again, I have never had a time where I'm like, you know what, this phone needs more performance. Like, I'm not doing anything crazy unless it overheats, and in which case, I don't think any iPhone can withstand the heat, and it just becomes a bug fest. Everything's freezing and lagging until you can give it a minute to cool down. You know, if people want to see it, let me know. Maybe I'll do like a 1 week switch or something, just for my own science. So that's the iPhone 15. That's one of the main things that we're obviously expecting. And then the next is the Apple Watch. And this could be a short part of our conversation here because the rumors are pretty underwhelming, honestly. It's basically going to be unchanged other than the S9 chip, and then maybe a couple of color options. One color option.
Yeah, one additional color option for the Series 9, one additional color option
For the
for the
Ultra.
Ultra. But the S9 is significant. I know it's not what people want.
Right.
I think people really just want new health features. They want a new design. The S9, I hope Apple will really demonstrate why it matters. And I hope that it translates to better battery life, because the standard Apple Watch models, every single one, Apple has marketed with up to 18 hours battery life. Going all the way back to 2014, that's what they've been saying. The iPhone has increased every year, but the Apple Watch has stayed the same. And I would love it if Apple said this year, no, it's not getting 18 hours, it's getting 20 hours or 21 hours. And that if that is enabled by the S9, that's a good enough reason for people like me that use the standard Apple Watch model to consider getting an upgrade. I'm not too sure what else it could do in terms of performance, but battery life to me seems like the key thing.
I'm really bummed that there are no new like health features. You know?
Well, it'll come. They can't
know.
have it every year.
Well, what did we have last year? We didn't have any new health feature last year. Well, I guess wasn't the temperature
Body
sensing?
temperature,
But
temperature sensing.
that's
so
not
that is
quite
health.
for everyone, though. It wasn't intended to be like that.
It is for everyone, but it's just not that useful.
Right. It's
So-
not like I can get my body temperature at any point. I'd have to sleep with it. I'd have to sleep with it for a while. And that's when it would tell me
Yeah.
whether or not there was a fluctuation. And it was mostly used for cycle tracking, correct?
Yeah, that's the main purpose that Apple advertised it for. But I
Right.
found it useful when I had COVID. So when I was ill and I had a fever, it enabled me to see the following day how bad my fever was in the night compared to a baseline.
Yeah.
So that was quite interesting and quite useful with the Series 8. It's not something I would suggest that you need to run out and buy the latest Apple Watch model for, but it did get a new health feature. That is a new health feature, and especially for
I
women,
know.
that is a new health feature.
But like, I was thinking like a flashier health feature, and I know that like, okay, so I have the Watch 6, and I think the Watch 5 from Samsung had the same feature, which I somehow didn't even realize, but it has blood pressure monitoring. Yeah, I mean, there's some asterisks next to that as opposed to whether like it's really that accurate or not, you know. So I was expecting like if Samsung's already got something like that, Apple's got to be. I know we've been hearing about that for a while, so it's got to be close. Like something like that would have been cool, or like your blood sugar. I know that's been rumored for a few years.
So the key thing to understand with how Apple has implemented these health upgrades is they've never done it every year. Since the Series 4, at least, it has been an every other year thing. So with the Series 4, we got ECG. With the Series 6, we got blood oxygen. With the Series 8, we got body temperature. So it does kind of follow that the next major health upgrade would be with the Series 10, which maybe could be blood glucose, because that's the feature that we have heard the most about in terms of research and development. Whether it will make that deadline or not, I don't know, but it would make sense. And ultimately, the way that the S9 is built will provide the groundwork for that. And WatchOS 10 is also definitely a lot more CPU intensive and GPU intensive than previous versions of WatchOS. With all the extra animations and full screen graphics. I mean, even stuff like the World Clock app is now this really visually rich app that definitely is leveraging the processor more. So it is time for a processor upgrade. Even if it isn't that exciting, if this year Apple had said the S9 chip and they had not mentioned performance at all, and then we'd put an article up that said the S9 chip is the same as the S8, the S7, and the S6, then there would have been 500 comments that just would have said, this is outrageous, this is unacceptable, yet another year with no chip innovation. So, you know, it's overdue. We've had 3 years of the same chip. It's a good thing.
I'm not saying it's not important. It's important. It's just there's like, when I get asked what's the new stuff in the Apple Watch, when I say chip update, no one's going to understand that, or most people will not care. So it'll just be like, we need, but it's laying the groundwork, so it is important. I'm just kind of shocked that there's got to be something. I know that we had crash detection on it too.
Yeah.
That's not something that anybody should use on a regular basis. Even with the Ultra, if you have the Apple Watch Ultra now, I mean, it's not going to be a huge jump there either, unless you want that different color option, which, by the way, I've seen some renders. I'm on board. That looks good. But I'm also wondering if this is really just too big. And if there were battery improvements to the S9, I would maybe consider going back. I don't know. Because I don't use any of the stuff that...
I think that Ultra regret will sink in by the time we get to the Series 10, especially if we get a little redesign for the Series 10, and it's the 10th anniversary of the Apple Watch next year. So it seems like I think the original or at least the standard Apple Watch models are going to get a little bit more love next year for the first time in a while, and that might be the thing that pushes a lot of Ultra users to come back over.
The last interesting thing that I have for Apple Watch is that Apple Watch fast charging could be mandatory for all accessory makers, which would be nice. I don't ever use well, no, that's not true. I do use third-party Apple Watch chargers like all the time. I don't know why I was going to say that, but when I dock it at night, it's on a third-party dock. Bless you. See, I'm a little stuffed up too. Yeah, just stuff's going around. Anyways, so that would be nice, I guess. But like, I only charge and that's the thing. This is an Apple Watch Ultra issue, so it might be more something that you need to comment on. But my Ultra has battery for days, so when I dock it at night, I don't care how fast it charges. Honestly, do you need faster charging?
Yeah, I do. I hate it if I have to use a charger that is not a fast charger. It makes a real difference. So I go out of my way to use Apple Watch fast chargers. And when I have been looking for third-party accessories, I have always looked for the fast charging ones. But it's true, there are not that many of them around. Still, if you look at a lot of third-party chargers, you will be hard-pushed to find many of them with fast charging. And it's way better now than it was a year ago. But even so, it's still a little bit challenging, and apparently this is because the components which accessory makers who are part of the Made for iPhone program, which is Apple's official program for licensing accessories, they get that charging component directly from Apple. Apparently it was in short supply for about a year. So accessory makers, even if they wanted to put fast charging in, couldn't do it, whereas now Apple is apparently discontinuing the slow charging module, and only the fast charging module will be available. So all third-party accessories should have that functionality, which should be really nice to see.
That's good. Yeah, I mean, if I switch back to the Series 9, then I'll probably want to charge. But even when I did have the other watch, I didn't really need to charge all that often. It would really only be if I ever forgot to charge one night.
I think if you do it every day, that's fine. And I have, with my standard Apple Watch, got 36 hours of battery life out of it. And I have the smaller model as well. And so you can make it work if you decrease brightness, if you turn off always on display, and if necessary, you can put ultra low power mode on now as well. So you can make it work, you can make it last. But just all you need to do, what I do is when I take a shower, I just put it on the fast charger, and that is more than enough to carry me through every day.
Yeah. Well,
and for sleep tracking as well, it keeps me going 24 hours pretty much, just off my wrist for not that long.
I'm not going to be out of touch on this one. I know there are people who want to charge fast with their Apple Watch, so I'm happy for them. And if I switch back to the regular from an Ultra, then I will probably want that too. So that's good that Apple's insisting on taking advantage of better technology anyways. Do you think we hear anything? I mean, that's really it for like the main two stuff at the event. And then we can kind of spend this last like 10 minutes or so speculating on what could happen. Any updates on Qi 2? Is that like a thing? Or the magnifying, the MagSafe charging and all that?
Well, Qi 2 is basically just an open version of MagSafe, so I don't know if there's going to be any new functionality enabled by that. But on a kind of related note, I think that what we will see
Air power?
is new accessories. Well, not air power, but what we will see, I think, and there have been no reports about this, this is just pure speculation on my part, is a new MagSafe Duo charger.
That's good. It
And let me
needs it.
tell you why. Because Apple has just said that they're not going to provide third-party manufacturers with the slow charging Apple Watch module. But the MagSafe Duo has the slow charging module. You cannot fast charge with Apple's own
Yeah.
first-party solution. So it needs an update for that. It also needs an update because the
It's
newer
lightning,
iPhone's
isn't
camera bumps are too large. Yeah, and lightning. So there's
Yeah.
3 upgrades they can give it. This is kind of the time it makes sense. Now, if they were going to just get rid of it, it would make sense that they would already have discontinued it.
Yeah.
But the fact that they haven't yet done that would suggest to me that when they unveil a range of new USB-C accessories, that is among them. So we get a new MagSafe battery with USB-C. It'd be really nice if that could get a little redesign, a little bit more battery life. I think that's nobody's favorite product. So it would be nice if maybe they had a second attempt at that with USB-C. MagSafe Duo, and of course we're going to get a new, the one thing we do know we're going to get is get a new AirPods Pro 2 charging case with USB-C as well. So that's 3 things. Maybe there will be others as well. Who knows if we'll get the Magic Keyboard and the Magic Mouse and the Magic Trackpad, USB-C variants of those. There's even a possibility, I suppose, that something like the iPhone SE gets USB-C and gets a refresh that literally just gives a USB-C port. I don't know, but there's a good chance that a chunk of the event will focus on, if you want to move to USB-C, here's how your new USB-C sort of ecosystem can work.
Yeah. They should make a MagSafe trio and add the AirPods as the third one. Just make it the same thing. It just folds 3 times instead of twice, or just once. 2 times instead of 1. I can't count.
But you could put your AirPods Pro on either the Apple Watch or on the
Yeah, but
MagSafe.
not at the same time.
But do you need to do it at the same time?
No, which is why it's not necessary. I use the Duo a lot when I travel. That's like the main thing that I use to charge at night. But sometimes, I don't know, when you go to bed, like, because I only ever charge my AirPods at home. I never charge it at home. I only ever charge it at the office real quick, or if I'm traveling, then I'll charge it when I go to bed at my nightstand, but I can't do that at the same time as my watch. So I have to do it like at a separate time, because that's when I'm using my AirPods the most. So yeah,
I think it would be nice to see some sort of all-in-one charging solution like that. Because I know there's some great offerings from Nomad, from Belkin, that do give you that 3-in-1 functionality.
yeah.
And I suppose that's why Apple haven't done it, because they think, well, what can we do that Nomad or Belkin are not already doing?
But there's not a lot of good
It'd be really
travel
interesting to
options,
see if
though.
there's and I suppose that's what the MagSafe Duo is supposed to fill that niche. And yeah, I mean, maybe it could be even more portable. I definitely think it could be made out of a little bit of a more resilient material. I don't love that sort of thin silicon
No, I'm not a
that they
fan.
use. So
gets
it would be
gross
nice if
and-
they redid that.
Yeah, it gets kind of gross, like the iPad case, the Magic Keyboard case. That's kind of what it reminds me of.
Yeah, it's the same material.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of that material, but it's fine. I was thinking like maybe if they added like a port to it, like a USB-C port, like a second one, and you could plug in another device if you needed to.
Yeah.
But I feel like that's not Apple's way of doing things. It's either wireless or not, Maybe.
I mean, I wouldn't rule anything out for it if they are going to take another look at the device. I should say again, there are no rumors of this, but it just
Right.
seems to make perfect sense
We're just
because
speculating.
they've either got to discontinue it or they've got to update it at this point. It really, it will. The current one, I do not see how that is still on sale after September.
Do you want to speculate now on any other surprise? Like if you had to pick one thing that's kind of like not a major surprise, but like bigger than accessories, what would you think?
I wouldn't be that. Maybe we could get an early look at M3
Okay.
potentially. If they really want to pad out the runtime, they can say they can segue into it from. So look at it like this: we get, first of all, we get Apple Watch Series 9, then we get second generation Apple Watch Ultra, then we get iPhone 15 and 15 Plus, and then we get iPhone 15 Pro and the 15 Pro Max, and we get this whole thing about the A17 in the 15 Pro and Pro Max, and then building off the A17 with the same clock speed, the same. We've just heard all about why 3nm is so amazing for Apple Silicon, and then we get a sneak peek of what that could do for the Mac. They haven't done anything like that with Apple Silicon before, where we get a sneak peek. And then that kind of leans nicely into an event where they can say, and you'll be hearing more about M3 before the end of the year.
Yeah, I guess so. I'm trying to think of, like, does another event make sense if there's no iPads besides the iPad mini?
I think it does if they've got enough to do, and they sort of do. If they've got the 13-inch MacBook Pro, they've got the 13-inch and 15-inch Air. They've also got the iMac.
I would say if they got an iMac in there, then yes, I will say they do. But if they don't, and it's just those two laptops, that's boring.
It's got to be iMac. It's got
Yeah.
to be.
Okay.
iMac has got to be. I mean, the iMac should be the main one. So that's a few Macs at least, and I wonder whether we may get Mac Mini. It seems a little bit too soon for Mac Mini and MacBook Pro because we did only get those refreshed in January. But I don't know. I mean, we're sort of also expecting an M3 15-inch MacBook Air, and we only just got that in June. So the timing on this is still a big question.
Man, that'd be really
not too
crappy
sure.
if another one came out 6 months later, less than 6 months later.
I mean, it has happened. Think about stuff like in 2020, there were 2 MacBook Airs released. One of them was released in May, and one of them was released in November.
Oh, the M1 and the Intel one?
Yeah. So they have done stuff like this, where if you're just an ordinary consumer and you just bought that in, I don't know, say June, and you think, well, it only came out in May, they're not going to refresh it all that soon.
True.
It has happened, and we know that the M2 15-inch MacBook Air was originally supposed to come out last year, but it didn't. So it could be overdue to get that, and maybe the current version won't be around for all that long. So I think the October event, if it is in October and not November, is a little bit more interesting because ultimately we've got 4 devices that are nailed down for the September event. That is enough to take up runtime, roughly sort of 20 minutes on each device. That's enough.
Oof.
Throw in something in the beginning, maybe give us a little bit about Vision Pro, give us some stuff on USB-C accessories. That carries you for that time. And of course, they're going to talk about iPadOS, iOS 17, watchOS, when that's all coming out. That should also be discussed. But what is October? That's the bigger question. And hopefully when we get past this event, we will get a little bit more clarity on that, because I just don't know, other than iMac and at least 2 MacBooks. And if they've all just got the same M3 chip and they are all designs that we are already familiar with, what is there to even talk about? Because they can only talk about the chip once at the event. They're not going to talk about the same chip for 3 different computers. So
maybe it's the time where they introduce Face ID into one of the Macs, but like to not be in a MacBook Pro would be weird. But like maybe the MacBook Air gets Face ID or some sort of new feature.
I think if and when Face ID is coming to the Mac, it will come to the iMac first.
Well, could it be on this one?
MacBooks are too. I mean, we haven't heard anything about it, but
could be a good surprise.
Maybe. I think it'd be really nice if the iMac got a little bit more than just the M3 chip.
Yeah.
Whether that will happen or not, I don't know, but it would be really nice to see.
I'm going to be honest with you.
Just racing, trying to think, what is it going to be in October?
I'm going to be honest with you. My mind's racing on what Apple could say for 20 minutes about the new Apple Watch. I'm not trying to be negative, but what do we got that's 20 minutes long?
Well, go and watch the Series 8 unveiling,
Oh,
and you
boy.
will see how
That's
they
even
can
worse.
talk about a watch that only had the Series 8 had body temperature sensing, it had crash detection, and it had a new accelerometer. I think it's just those three things,
Hold on, I'm going to see how
and
long they talk
that
for.
got plenty of runtime.
iPhone 2022. They spent.
Oh well, we are also expecting a new Apple Watch band, so we'll get some
Ugh.
pretty animated video of the new band. I'm sure that'll take up some more time.
Okay, Apple Watch Series 8 started at timestamp 6:47 and ended at. Well, they had 3 watches. No, they only did the 8 and the SE was. Oh, geez. They spent 14 minutes on the Series 8. And then they spent 2 minutes on the SE. And then they spent 23 to 40, almost 20 minutes on the Apple Watch Ultra. But that was a whole new product, so
Yeah.
not going to have 20 minutes of content there this time. So it'll be interesting to see. But all right, well, let us know in the comments down below what you guys are thinking for the iPhone event. But I can tell you for sure there will be a new iPhone. You know, call me Nostradamus, but yeah. And so we'll catch everybody in the next episode.